Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday, hump day. So, we are continuing our exploration of the resiliency key of fear and the gate 28, which is one of the splenic gates. So, over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about conditioning, how oftentimes when we are conditioned to somehow be different than who we are or how we are, we internalize that conditioning, and that condition, that internalized mistake or lie about who we are that says you can't be who you are or you can't be how you are, when we internalize that, we become habituated to behaving in a way that's not really aligned with our authentic self. This habituated way of being takes us away from our authentic self expression. It actually causes us, and this is something we don't talk about a lot, it causes us to leak energy. Oh, wait, hang on. I'm going to change glasses. I'm going to shift perspectives here. Hang on. I have my super duper glasses on instead of my regular glasses. So when we internalize these messages, that message that you learned either from your family, from your lived experiences in school, when we internalize those messages of it's not okay for you to be who you are or how you are, the one thing we don't talk about a lot is how does that impact not only our self-worth, which is kind of obvious, but how does that also impact our energy? Because here's what happens when you internalize the message that it's not okay for you to be who you are and how you are, you start putting up a facade. You start behaving like someone you're not designed to be. And, I always use the analogy with my students of this. If you go to like one of those fancy masquerade parties where you have to carry your mask around, those sexy masks with the stick, when you have to carry that around all night long, it's going to be an hour before you're like, forget the mask, right? Because how long can you walk around like this? It gets in the way of your flow, right? Your arm gets tired. Even that mask isn't heavy, right? You're not really using a whole lot of energy in the moment to hold up that mask. But if you're doing that over time, your arm's going to get tired, your shoulder's going to get tired, and you're going to put the mask down. That's how burnout works. A lot of times, what's happening when we are burned out, it's not a bad job that we hate or not making enough money. What's happened is we spent a lifetime exerting what feels like maybe isn't a whole lot of effort, saying yes when we want to say no, saying no when we want to say yes. And then over time, we get tired holding up that fake identity, that false facade, and we have to either set it down. But of course, we don't set it down because it's scary to set it down. If we set it down, if we take the mask off, then we have to be our authentic self. And we've built up a lot of times this huge, huge system of covering up that authentic self as a way of keeping it safe. When we're doing that, not only do we burn out, we are not resilient. Our ability to be nimble when things change, our ability to pivot and to adapt to the shifts and changes that are happening in a rapidly changing world right now goes down. And when we're not resilient, then we struggle when things get challenging. We struggle when we have to find those reserve energies inside of us. And, I'm sorry, I've been alive on this planet for 56 years. Everything is not always going to be effortless and easy. There will be challenges. It's sort of built into the design. You're definitely going to hit challenges at the end of your 20s, at the end of your 30s, at the end of your 40s, at the end of your 50s, at the end of your, well, after you get to like 62, you should be okay until you're about 80. But then you have all that other things, the whole shifts and changes in your identity and work and all that other stuff to deal with. You're always going to have bumps along the way. You need those bumps. Those are cataclysmic cycles of growth and expansion. Those disruptions that come from the bumps of life are crucial for your growth and your maturity. And if you are holding on to a false identity, if you're not resilient, if you can't pivot, if you can't be nimble, then you're going to be brittle when you need to be fluid. And you're going to be exhausted when you need to be able to dig deep into those resources that you might not have access to because you've depleted yourself holding up this little teeny tiny fake mask all along the way. So that's what we've been talking about in lots of different ways over the last few Facebook Lives. And if you missed any of them, do scroll down and catch the ones that you missed. We've been going around all the gates of the spleen center, Also, I just want to let you know that next Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Central, I think it's actually at 7 p.m. Central. I'll double check that. 7 p.m. Central on Wednesday next week, and on Thursday at 11 a.m. Central. And you can pick one. You don't have to come to both of these. I just am doing these at different times because we have a lot of people who are interested in this program. I'm doing a free webinar called Deconditioning by Design, and I'm going to go deep into what's underneath those places where maybe you are sabotaging yourself, holding yourself back. If you're a coach and you coach other people, this is an important webinar for you to look at what's underneath those places where your clients are procrastinating or they don't show up for their homework, or the minute they hit visibility, or those places where they have to get out of their comfort zone, they're like, I need a refund. You don't need a refund. You just need to dig deep, right? So we're going to be exploring next week, how do we get underneath those places where we hold ourselves back? What's the real reason why we hold ourselves back? And it goes beyond just, hey, I'm not living true to my design. That's a little part of it. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. And so what we're going to be looking at is human development, the challenges and the things we need to push against for maturity, and how, if we've experienced any kind of an integration of the message that it's not okay for us to be who we are and how we are, how we, when we internalize that, how that holds us back, and how to get around that. That's your conditioning. How do we get around that so that we can tap into the full expression of our potential? Okay, that's a gross summary of what we've been doing. Let's talk about where we're at. And let's talk about today, the gate 28. So I have such a bugaboo for this gate. Now, let me just start by saying I don't have this one defined in my chart, but I love lots and lots of people who do. I actually, my youngest son has his conscious son is in the gate 28 in line 6, which is called the Blaze of Glory. So we're going to talk about the gate 28. In traditional human design, we call this the gate of struggle. And in quantum human design, we call this the gate of adventure or challenge. And it's definitely a gate. If you have this defined in your chart, you totally probably relate to the word struggle. I don't think I've ever done a reading for someone who has the gate 28 defined who doesn't relate to struggle. It's kind of like a gate that embodies the energy of the third line profile, right? We know the third line is an experiential learner, right? If you have a 3 in your profile, or if you're a young 6-line profile, if you're a 6-line profile who's younger than 30, you probably really relate to the phrase trial and error, right? I don't like to use that phrase because it implies that there's some kind of a mistake or wrongness about the experiential learning process, and there isn't. So if you are a 3rd-line profile, you've literally never made a mistake in your life. You have to try everything to see what works and what doesn't. And the gate 28 is kind of like that too. It's an energy that is what we call mutative, or it's part of individual circuitry, or I call that transformational circuitry in quantum human design. And if you missed my human design weekly update with the celestial weather, if you missed that, go over to my Karen Curry Parker page, Facebook page. I'm going to get in trouble by Kristen if I say this wrong. It's the big page with all the stuff on it. Go to, just look Karen Curry Parker. On that page at the top, there is the evolution report for the week. Go read it because it has a lot of really important information in there about individual circuitry. The gate 28 is part of individual circuitry, so it's an energy that brings change. All right, it's connected to the 38, which is actually where the energy for a visionary leader lives. So the 5th line in profiles is called the visionary leader in quantum human design. So this 2838, in a really interesting way, and I'm saying this, and this is a little bit above some of you, if you're just learning human design, just plug your ears and don't listen to this. I'm not trying to confuse you. But, you know, really there's only a handful of archetypes in the chart. Yeah, there's 64 lines, there's all these circuits, there's centers, there's types. But really, if we start looking at what do they all mean, we're really looking at about 9 core diamonds and then a bunch of little facets on that diamond. The themes of the chart actually repeat themselves in a lot of different ways in many different layers. So this gate 28 and the electromagnetic, the 38, is kind of like the embodiment in the circuitry of the 3-5 profile. There's exploring, there's experiencing, there's trying things that don't always work, there's trying things that really do work. And the purpose of that adventure, the gate 28, is to cultivate and craft a deep sense. Cindy knows this gate well, she says, and I know she does, but it's about cultivating a deep sense of what's really worth fighting for. The gate 28 has to explore and experience and be challenged by life. And actually, people who have this defined, and this is kind of foreign to me because I don't have this defined, but actually people who have this defined, they actually kind of seek out the challenge. They like it, right? They like to be challenged. They like to get out of their comfort zone. They like things like mountain climbing and rappelling, and some of them, not all of them, but some of them do. It's that challenge and pushing against the edges of the story of possibility in the human experience that allows the person who is using this energy to really explore what's really meaningful in life. And how do I craft that understanding of what's really meaningful in life to build a bigger vision of what's possible in the human story? This is the place where, if we look at archetypes and metaphors and heroes who have lived before, Martin Luther King was a perfect embodiment of this energy, right? He knew there was challenges involved in his mission. He knew that there were risks involved in this mission, but the mission itself was big enough and valuable enough and important enough to be willing to push against the challenges and the potential adventures, struggle that he knew was ahead of him to really get into the full expression of the potential of that dream becoming manifest. So, if you carry this energy, part of your life purpose is to use your own challenges and struggles to better lead and guide and teach others, to be able to share from your own experiences what works and what doesn't, and what's really worth fighting for, if you will. Now, the shadow of this energy is the fear that life has no meaning, or that whatever you're working on is meaningless. And also the fear that it might end up being too hard, that there might be too much of a struggle. And so oftentimes, if you have this gate defined in your chart, you might find that you hold yourself back because you're afraid that it's going to be too hard, or that it's not going to be worth the effort, and you're going to end up exhausted and depleted and suffering. Which, by the way, there's no suffering designed in the chart. There's nothing in the chart that says you're designed to suffer. You're not. But there's a fear that you could. And that fear of the suffering, or the fear that it's too hard, can really hold you back. That it can keep you from taking that leap. And, the reality of the life with someone who has the 28 is that no matter how calculated and careful you are, there will be a certain amount of experiential learning that happens with this energy. And that's not personal. It's not failing. It's not screwing up. You didn't do it wrong. It's your job to find the challenge. It's your job through experiencing the challenge to help others avoid the challenge. And it's your job through this challenge to learn to cultivate an important understanding of what's really worth struggling for, or what's really worth being challenged by. And when you can understand that, then you lead people to something new. You transform them from your own journey of transformation. So, all right, I'm going to read the comments here. Yes, so 28 defined, fear that it'll be too hard. The movie soul lives out in the, I would say, to a certain degree, the movie soul, or I would say the hero's journey to a certain degree is in that tension point in the story of the hero's journey. And so, it is from that process of being transformed by the challenge that we step into a bigger, beautiful, and more expansive understanding of the truth of who we are. So, as I said, I have some people in my life who, my husband has this, I have a son who has this defined, I have my youngest daughter has this defined, my middle daughter has this defined. It's a gate that I watch a lot. and it is always kind of interesting to see the path that people with the 28 will take, because it's often a path that I personally would be like, I'm not doing that. That looks terrifying. But there's a certain amount of joy and even curiosity, if you will, about the challenge, and a need to explore the challenge as part of the learning process. So anyway, I hope I gave you some good insights today about challenge. Take good care of yourselves. We'll be back here, or I will be back here tomorrow. We'll be talking about the final gate, the final fear gate of the spleen. We'll be talking about the gate 18, which will be fun to talk about because it's actually transiting. Actually, the sun is transiting through the gate 18 next week. So we're all going to get to experience the gate 18 for at least a little bit next week. So have a good evening and a good day, and I will talk to you guys all tomorrow.